I used to think silence was peaceful, a sanctuary, something you looked forward to at the end of a long day, when the dishes were done, the kids asleep, and the house exhaled. But lately, the silence in our home felt like it had teeth, like it was chewing on the walls, stripping the paint, waiting for something to bleed. Her name is Catherine, my wife. We've been married 13 years, and somewhere in year 10, she started looking at me like I was the couch, comfortable, but out of style. You don't hate the couch. You just start fantasizing about something newer, sleeker. I knew something was off for months. It wasn't the late nights, those had explanations. Client dinners, agency parties, networking drinks. No, what tipped me off were the tiny inconsistencies. The way her phone never left her hand. How she started humming songs I'd never heard on her playlist. The way she'd watch baby commercials with a strange sadness, even after we'd both agreed, no more kids. We had two. Emma, 11, sharp as a scalpel. And Josh, 9, who still thinks the world is made of superheroes and breakfast cereal. Good kids. Deserved better. Then came the morning she didn't come home. She claimed work emergency. Said she slept at a coworker's apartment. But her phone never left the Bluetooth in her car. I found it synced to her home stereo by accident, and her recent call list read like a confession. One name. Repeated. Morning and night. Leo. I don't know why it was that name that undid me. Maybe because it sounded like someone young, confident. Someone who wore cologne that cost more than my shoes and believed in karma more than mortgages. I didn't confront her that night. I made coffee. I asked about her meeting. I smiled at all the right beats. When she left the room, I opened her laptop. It wasn't locked. That's when I saw the emails. And the appointment, one that had already passed. Reproductive health consultation completed. It didn't take a genius to put the pieces together. Later, I checked our insurance portal, the place most people forget logs everything. There it was, clinical and cold. Voluntary termination. 7 weeks. We had talked about another child once. Just one more. She said she wasn't ready. Said her career was finally taking off. Said it would be unfair to the kids we already had. But it wasn't about timing or fairness. It was about Leo. One night, after the kids were asleep and she was curled up on the couch texting someone she pretended was Sarah from work, I sat in the garage and just stared at the concrete. I didn't cry. I couldn't. The pain was too far inside, locked somewhere behind the ribs. All I could feel was this cold, steady hum, like my body had been unplugged from something vital. I don't know how long I sat there. An hour. Maybe 3. Long enough for my coffee to go cold and my mind to make a decision. Not rage. Not revenge. Not in the way people think. But resolve. This wasn't something I could forgive. Not just the betrayal of me, but of our family. Of the child she discarded like an obstacle on her way to something shinier. No, I wasn't going to yell. Or storm out. Or plead. I was going to watch. And plan. Because if she thought she could burn down my life and build a new one in the ashes, she hadn't done her homework. She didn't know who she married. The morning after I found out, I made her breakfast. Eggs over medium. Toast just the way she likes it. Lightly buttered. Edge crisp. No crust. I even brewed the hazelnut coffee she used to love before she traded it in for almond milk lattes and Leo's taste in brunch spots. She blinked at the plate like it was a bomb. What's this? She asked, still halfway into her phone. Breakfast, I said cheerfully. Felt like treating my wife. She looked up, confused. You're in a good mood. I woke up next to the most beautiful woman I've ever seen, I replied. Why wouldn't I be? That was the first lie of the day, but not the last. Over the next week, I became the man she always said she missed, the one who left love notes in her purse, rubbed her shoulders after work, and asked questions about her day with real interest. Except this time, the interest wasn't love. It was reconnaissance. I watched her body language shift under the weight of it. The way her smile twitched just a fraction too tight. The way she laughed a half-second late. The way she flinched, not visibly, not enough for the kids to notice, but like guilt was pressing down on her chest just enough to affect her breathing. Oh, hey, I said one evening, slipping a small box onto her side of the bed. Just because. Inside was a bracelet she'd once admired in a catalog. I'd bookmarked the page, back when I still thought we were building something. Now it was bait. She opened it, stunned. Evan, you didn't have to. I wanted to, I said, kissing her forehead. You deserve to feel appreciated. That one landed. I saw her eyes flick down, then away. The guilt was beginning to itch beneath her skin. Good. You see, betrayal breaks something primal. It strips the gears of trust and grinds them into powder. Most people rage. Some retreat. But I rebuilt. I didn't want her to just feel bad. I wanted her to feel safe, loved, chosen, so that every second spent texting him, every lie she told, would burn a little deeper. One night, I found her standing in the hallway, staring at a family photo. The four of us on the pier last summer. Josh had ice cream on his shirt. Emma was mid-eye roll. I remember thinking we looked real. She didn't hear me walk up. Beautiful, isn't it? I said. She jumped. Yeah, it is. I wrapped my arms around her. I'm glad we've made it through the rough patch. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. Just a nod. A quiet, shaky nod. That's when I knew. She was unraveling. Not enough to confess. Not yet. But the performance was working. She didn't know what game I was playing, and that was the point. I wasn't here to scream and flip tables like some Lifetime drama. No, I was an engineer. Precision was my business. I'd draw her in with warmth, drown her in kindness. And when the time came, I'd watch her crumble from the inside out. Because no punishment is more elegant than the one you walk into smiling. I always believe that if you want to take down a structure, you don't start with the roof. You go for the foundation. Leo. That was his name. The man Catherine had burned our family down for. A regional creative director with just enough charm and just enough stubble to pass for desirable to women who mistake ambition for depth. I wasn't interested in his resume. I was interested in his weakness. Everyone has one. So I dug. Social media, employee directories, LinkedIn posts, photos he was tagged in but didn't post himself. People always forget about those. The smile that wasn't for the camera. The hand too familiar on someone else's waist. Her name was Vanessa. I found her Instagram first, buried under a pseudonym, but tied to an old client testimonial on the firm's website. Real estate agent, mid-30s, soft-featured and stylish in a way that said effort, not money. Her captions were poetic, like she wanted the world to think she read more than she did. But it was the comments that mattered. Leo's comments. Fire emojis. Inside jokes. A few late-night likes on photos that had nothing to do with open houses. Catherine wasn't his first escape hatch. He had a pattern. And patterns, well, those can be used. I learned Vanessa's routines. Where she shopped. Where she ran on Saturday mornings. Her favorite cafe. It wasn't stalking, not really. It was engineering. I was laying the groundwork. Then one Tuesday morning, I bumped into her at the cafe across from Meridian Advertising. I held the door for her. She thanked me with a polite smile. I think I've seen you around here before, I said, casual. Oh, she replied, cautious but polite. I work across the street, I lied. Project manager. Infrastructure firm. You're in real estate, right? She blinked. The badge on her tote bag had given it away, but she didn't notice that. She just smiled. Yeah, Vanessa. Evan. We shook hands. We sat at different tables that day, but she glanced at me twice. I made sure she saw me holding the door for an elderly man. I smiled at the barista by name. I laughed at a text on my phone. Every move calculated. I made sure I wasn't just likable. I was safe. By the third time I ran into her, I offered to pay for her latte. She hesitated. I insist, I said, with the kind of confidence that doesn't beg. Thank you, she said, almost blushing. We sat together that day, talked about city traffic and overpriced housing. I listened. Really listened. Not because I cared, but because listening is how you get people to talk about the things they don't mean to. Vanessa was bright, funny in that slightly anxious way people are when they're afraid of being uninteresting. She talked about her job, her dog, her complicated relationship. I didn't press. I didn't have to. She was lonely. She didn't say it, but I recognized the way she looked past her phone after every buzz, hoping it was him. By the end of the conversation, she was smiling at me in that way women smile when they want to keep talking, but don't want to seem too eager. Nice meeting you, Evan, she said. You too, Vanessa. Hopefully we bump into each other again. We would, because I was going to make sure of it. As she walked away, her heels tapping on the tile, I watched her silhouette and thought, not with lust, but with calculation. She didn't know it yet, but she was about to become the most important piece on the board. And Catherine wouldn't even realize the game had changed. Vanessa liked almond milk, classic novels she rarely finished, and men who made her feel like she was the only one in the room, until they didn't. It didn't take long to become her confidant. All it took was patience. And consistency. I never flirted. Not directly. I just listened more than most men did. I remembered details. Her dog's name. Her sister's upcoming wedding. The way she always stirred her coffee counterclockwise. "You're easy to talk to," she said one afternoon, as we sat in the corner booth of a low-key Italian place she picked. "I don't feel like I have to try with you." That was the opening. I gave her a small, warm smile. "That's rare, isn't it?" She nodded, chewing her lip. "With Leo? I mean, with some people, you always feel like you're one wrong word away from being too much." There it was. The name, dropped without thinking, like I hadn't already known. "I've heard of him," I said, casually sipping my espresso. "Big shot creative, right?" Her eyes flicked up. "You know him?" I shrugged. "We've crossed paths. Nothing deep. Just enough to get an impression." She leaned in a little. "What kind of impression?" I tilted my head, then smiled. "You know, I don't want to color your view. People are complicated." That sentence, that withholding, was the hook. She bit. "I get the feeling you're not telling me something." I looked down, feigning conflict. You seem like someone who deserves honesty. But it's not my place." The more I didn't say, the more she wanted me to say it. That's the trick. You don't hand people information. You let them dig for it. The digging makes it feel earned. Truth tastes better when you pull it from clenched teeth. "I'm not naive," she said later that day, sitting in her car outside the restaurant. "I know he's probably not being straight with me. But when he's with me, it feels real." "You know," I nodded slowly. "Yeah, I know." Back at home, the performance continued. Catherine had started to fray at the edges. It wasn't visible to the kids yet, but I saw it. The jump in her voice when I asked how work was going. The sudden interest in family game night. The way she'd reach for my hand during TV, only to pull back, unsure if I'd accept it. She was trying to rewrite a narrative she'd already burned. Guilt is a funny thing. It doesn't fix people, but it makes them behave like they're trying. One night, she surprised me with dinner. Candles. Wine. The same lasagna recipe she hadn't cooked since our 5th anniversary. I smiled warmly. "This looks amazing." "You deserve it," she said, avoiding eye contact. "For being so good to me lately." "Lately?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. She paused. "I mean always." That was trap number 1. I tucked that line away like a receipt. Meanwhile, I kept stoking the flame with Vanessa. Texts that weren't flirtatious but felt intimate. Little compliments buried in stories. Genuine laughter at her dry humor. I made her feel seen. Not desired. Not hunted. Just seen. And people fall harder when they think no one else ever looked. Then, one evening as we walked out of the cafe, she stopped me. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Do you think people like Leo can actually change?" I looked at her. Her arms were folded, her brow furrowed, but the vulnerability was real. "I think they change for someone. Not because they want to, but because losing that person would cost them more than they're willing to pay." She nodded slowly, looking off toward traffic. Then, softly, "I don't think I'm that person for him." And just like that, she cracked. Not wide open, not yet, but enough for me to see inside. She trusted me now. And Catherine? Well, she was beginning to doubt if she even trusted herself. The board was set. The pawns were moving. Catherine started watching me the way I used to watch her, when I first sensed something was wrong. Her eyes lingered longer when I picked up my phone. Her questions became gentle prods disguised as small talk. "You've been smiling a lot lately," she said one evening, wine glass in hand, leaning against the doorframe of our bedroom. "Have I?" I replied without looking up from my book. "Yeah, just different." I gave her a soft chuckle. "Maybe I'm just realizing what I have." That one landed hard. I could feel her stare harden even as her mouth smiled back. Guilt had rotted her core. All I had to do was make her wonder whether it had started to leak. So, I began leaving small things out. Not enough to accuse me of anything. Just enough to make her skin itch. A text from V on my phone, visible just long enough. A receipt for 2 cappuccinos, left in the jacket pocket she liked to hang up for me. An unfamiliar female voice, laughing faintly in the background during a fake speakerphone call I staged while chopping vegetables. She never confronted me directly. She wouldn't dare. That would mean opening the door to her own secrets. But I saw it in the way she started over-explaining her whereabouts again. The way she kept glancing at her reflection before she left for work. Her makeup was a little more refined now. Her smiles a little more rehearsed. She had gone from guilty to nervous. Good. That was the zone I wanted her in. Suspicion without certainty. Anxiety with no outlet. At the same time, Vanessa was beginning to ask more questions of her own. One afternoon at the cafe, she leaned across the table and said, "You ever think Leo's seeing someone else?" I kept my expression neutral. "Why do you ask?" She gave a bitter smile. "He disappears sometimes. Comes back all sweet and attentive, but it feels off. And he's gotten defensive. Like if I even ask a question, I'm some jealous psycho." I nodded slowly. "That's not about you. That's guilt management. People who lie for a living, they always think they're being hunted." Her eyes flickered. "You think he's lying to me?" I took a breath, leaned in slightly, and said, "I think he's lying to someone." That was all she needed. Not an accusation. Just enough truth to feed the doubt she'd been swallowing for weeks. At home, Catherine started trying harder. More affection, more small touches, more "I thought of you today" texts. It was almost charming if it hadn't been so transparently desperate. She even asked me to take a weekend trip with her. "Just the two of us," she said, "to reconnect." I smiled and said I'd check my schedule. Then I canceled her card the next morning. Not all of them, just the one she used for her little solo escapes. I told her it was probably fraud. She believed me. Mostly. It was all about balance. Enough doubt to make them second guess, but never enough for them to act. Catherine and Vanessa were both starting to feel the same thing: instability. It's a delicate pressure. The kind you can't quite name, but it lives in your bones. I wasn't controlling them with force. I was controlling the oxygen in the room. And both of them were starting to feel like they couldn't breathe. People always think truth is a sword, sharp, final, bloody. But the truth I fed Vanessa was more like a slow drip. A subtle leak in the ceiling. You don't notice it until the drywall sags and something gives way. We were sitting on a park bench near the river, sipping takeaway coffee on a breezy Thursday morning. Her heels were off, legs tucked under her, face softer than I'd ever seen it. "You ever wonder," she said, "why we stay with people who make us feel small?" "All the time," I said. She looked at me carefully. I think I knew something was wrong with Leo before we even started. I said nothing. Just let the silence fill in the answer she already knew. "I used to think I was special," she continued. "But now it feels like I'm just convenient." I gave her the opening. "I'm going to tell you something," I said gently. "And I don't want to upset you, but I think you deserve to know." Her body stiffened, but she didn't stop me. "I know, Leo," I said. I didn't want to get into it, but our lives have crossed in ways I wish they hadn't. "What do you mean?" she asked, suddenly alert. I sighed and looked down, like it hurt. "Let's just say, he's been involved with someone very close to me. And it wasn't a one-time thing." Her lips parted. "You're serious?" I nodded. I didn't know at first. I had no reason to suspect anything. But once I found out, I started noticing the patterns, the timing, the lies. She stared at me like I was a window to something she hadn't dared look at before. A reflection she hadn't expected. "Why are you telling me this?" she whispered. "Because I've been made a fool of," I said. "And I have a feeling I'm not the only one." I watched her crumble slightly, like a chair missing a screw. That little shift in posture when someone's emotional equilibrium tilts just a few degrees off center. She didn't cry. She just grew quiet. "Can we talk more?" "Somewhere private," she asked. "Of course," I said. "Whenever you're ready." And just like that, I had her. Meanwhile, Catherine was beginning to circle like a predator who smells a fire but can't find the source. She came into my office that night, arms folded tight, eyes sharp. "You've been acting strange lately," she said. I looked up, mild and calm. "Strange how?" "You're distant. But also, I don't know," smiling more. "Like you're hiding something." I gave her a patient chuckle. "You're being paranoid." She stepped forward. "Don't do that. Don't gaslight me." I tilted my head, gave her the softest, most infuriating smile I could muster. "Catherine, I've just been trying to be a better husband. If that feels strange to you, maybe ask yourself why." She blinked, just once, but it was enough. She didn't respond, just turned and left the room without a word. A retreat disguised as a tactical withdrawal. She was unraveling. And the best part? She still wasn't sure if I knew. She just suspected. That's the magic of half-truths. People fill in the rest with their own guilt. That night, I got a message from Vanessa. "Tomorrow night. My place. I need to know everything." I looked at the message for a long time. And then, I smiled. Because now? Now she was inviting the truth in. Vanessa poured 2 glasses of wine, though she didn't touch hers. Her hands trembled just enough for the rim of the glass to catch the light. We sat in her living room, clean, curated, too quiet for what was about to happen. "I need to know what you meant," she said. When you said Leo had been with someone close to you. I nodded slowly. Looked down. Let the silence stretch like old fabric, just long enough to build pressure. He was sleeping with my wife, I said softly. She didn't react. Not right away. It hit her like a delayed punch. You could see the moment the words caught up to her, jaw clenching, nostrils flaring. You're sure? I have more than enough proof, I said. I didn't come here to make a scene. I came because you deserve the truth. And because you're the only other person who understands what it feels like to be lied to by someone you gave everything to. I let my voice crack a little there. Not too much. Just enough to make it believable. Vanessa stared into the distance like she was trying to see a future that suddenly didn't exist. I can't believe this, she whispered. I leaned in, gentle. There's something else. Her head turned slightly, wary now. My wife, she was pregnant. Her breath hitched. She told me she wasn't ready for another child. Said it was bad timing. I understood. Or tried to. But later, I found out it wasn't about timing at all. I let the next words come slower, heavier. She terminated the pregnancy. Not because of her career. Not because of us. But because she wanted a child with him. Vanessa let out a sound I can only describe as a gasp and a growl fused together. That son of a bitch. I nodded. I thought I was just the secret, she said bitterly. Turns out I'm the backup. I reached for her hand. She let me hold it. I didn't tell you this to hurt you, I said. I told you because I see you. And because I know what it feels like to be betrayed and made to feel like you're imagining it. She blinked hard, eyes glassy. How are you this calm? I'm not, I said. I'm just focused. She squeezed my hand. There it was. The hook was set. At home, Catherine was spiraling. She tried to surprise me with sex one night, lingerie she hadn't worn in years, wine on the nightstand, candles flickering like it was our anniversary. I kissed her forehead and told her I had a migraine. She didn't speak for the rest of the night. The next morning, she made pancakes. The ones I liked. She burned them. And when I said nothing, she started crying at the kitchen table. Evan, she said through quiet sobs, what's happening to us? I crouched beside her, brushing her hand with the softest touch. Nothing's happening. Maybe you're just feeling off lately. She looked at me like she wanted to scream but couldn't form the words. Because to accuse me of something would open the floodgates. And she wasn't ready for that storm. Not yet. But she was breaking. That much was clear. And I was feeding both women their own curated nightmares. To Vanessa, I was the wounded husband who wanted peace, who exposed a lover's deception with reluctant grace. To Catherine, I was the husband slipping from her grasp, loving and distant at once, just enough to make her question every move she'd made since the first lie. They were both unraveling. And they were both looking to me for balance. That's when the idea of the party started to crystallize. Catherine's parents had been hinting at a family gathering. Her father's retirement. Her mother's birthday. Some excuse to dress up and pretend we were all stable people with stable lives. She asked me if I thought it was a good idea. I smiled warmly and said, absolutely. It's time we got everyone together again. And inside? I began setting the table. Revenge, contrary to what Hollywood would have you believe, isn't loud. It doesn't wear leather gloves and sunglasses or come with dramatic music. Real revenge? It's event planning. It's logistics. It's making sure the invitations are sent, the seating is arranged, and the lighting is just right when the truth walks in wearing its Sunday best. It started with Catherine's mother. She loved parties, lived for them. Really. I leaned into that. Wouldn't it be great, I said one night, to throw something special for your husband? A celebration for his retirement. A toast to a great career. Her eyes lit up like a slot machine on a jackpot. You know, she said, that's a wonderful idea. I could help plan it, I offered. Take some stress off your plate. She practically kissed my hand. The date was set. The invitations, handwritten by her with that air of upper-middle-class flourish, were co-signed by me and Catherine. I made sure of that. Emma and Josh would be with Catherine's sister that night, safe, out of the way. No kids needed to see this. I offered to handle the guest list for our friends. That's where the real work began. I reached out to Richard Vaughn, Leo's boss at Meridian. Told him we'd love for the leadership team to come. Catherine's dad had always admired their company, I said. It would mean a lot to have them there. He agreed, thrilled for a little PR moment in khakis and finger food. Next, I contacted Vanessa. Told her I'd be attending a family party and asked if she'd consider coming as my plus one. Framed it as a kind gesture, a way to ease back into the world with someone who understood. She hesitated, then said yes. I didn't push, didn't sell it. That's how you close the deal when someone's still raw. You act like you have nothing to gain. Back home, Catherine was unraveling fast. My warmth, my patience, it was driving her mad. She kept testing me, looking for cracks. Asked if we should renew our vows during the party as a symbolic gesture. I said, that sounds beautiful. Watch her eyes twitch. Every night, I left my phone out, screen facing up. Nothing suspicious on it, just enough ambiguity to keep her wondering. Vanessa saved in my contacts as Vic. That's the thing about paranoia. Once it blooms, it doesn't need water. I also began laying groundwork with Catherine's father. Over a whiskey at their house, I thanked him earnestly for being a steady example of what a man should be. He liked that. I could see it in the way he clapped my shoulder. He would never see it coming. The night before the party, Catherine stood in our bedroom, holding 2 shirts. Which one should you wear tomorrow? She asked. I pointed to the navy one. The same shirt I wore on the day we signed the mortgage papers for this house. I wanted the symmetry. She smiled weakly, almost like she believed the act again. Almost. But her hands trembled just enough when she buttoned it on the hanger. And I knew. She felt the storm coming, even if she didn't know what it was. The morning of the party arrived like a gift-wrapped confession. The house was clean. The food catered. The wine chilled. The guest list locked. I stood in front of the mirror, tying my tie with a calm I hadn't felt in years. Catherine walked past me, lips painted red, perfume clinging to her like a mask. She paused in the doorway. You look handsome, she said. I smiled. You have no idea. Because tonight, the lights would be bright, the cameras would be rolling, and every lie told would finally get its audience. It was showtime. The evening began with laughter. Glasses clinked. Hors d'oeuvres floated by on silver trays. The house buzzed with the polite chaos of mingling relatives and half-sober coworkers attempting charm. Catherine looked radiant. I'll give her that she always did know how to decorate disaster. Vanessa arrived exactly 7 minutes late. Just enough to turn heads without seeming deliberate. She wore black. Simple. Elegant. Devastating. I greeted her at the door, smiled, kissed her cheek like we were already a quiet thing unfolding behind closed doors. Catherine noticed. Of course she did. She was talking to Richard Vaughn when it happened, her boss, who also noticed. That was the first crack in her mask. Good. Dinner was served buffet style. Easy, unassuming. I waited until everyone had their plates, wine was poured, and the music had softened into that lull people mistake for comfort. Then I stood up. Catherine caught my eye. Confused. Nervous. I clinked my glass. Before dessert, I said, I'd like to say a few words. The room quieted. Chairs shifted. Catherine's father nodded, proud. He thought this was going to be heartfelt. So did Catherine. And for a moment, I let them believe it. I just want to thank everyone for coming, I began. It means a lot to be surrounded by family, friends, colleagues. I looked at Richard. And lovers. There was a pause. Laughter from a few. Nervous chuckles. They thought I was making a joke. I wasn't. I reached into the sideboard drawer I'd prepared earlier, pulled out a small remote and tapped the projector I'd set up behind the mantel. The screen descended. The first image appeared, grainy, time-stamped, unmistakable. Catherine, half-dressed, in a hotel mirror. The next slide, Leo in the background, brushing his teeth. Casual. Domestic. Gasps. Then came the text messages. I read a few aloud. I wish he'd just leave quietly. I can't wait to have your baby. He'll never see it coming. Catherine stood. Evan, stop. This isn't true. I asked, clicking again. Audio played. A recording. Her voice. My lawyer says I can take half of that loser's business, too. The room stopped breathing. Her parents looked like someone had pulled the floor out from under them. Catherine's mother covered her mouth. Her father just stared, stone still, like he couldn't compute what he was hearing. Then came Leo's texts. One to Vanessa. She means nothing to me. You're the only one. I turned to Vanessa, who sat perfectly still. Not surprised. Just ready. She asked me why I was so calm, I said. Why I've been smiling lately. It's because I knew this day was coming. Because I believe in symmetry. You betray people in the dark? The lights will find you. Richard Vaughn rose from his seat. Leo, is this? Leo stuttered. Tried to speak. Catherine was already crying. This, I said, raising my glass, is what it looks like when people think they're playing a private game, but forget the rest of us were in the room the whole time. I looked around the crowd. My children aren't here tonight. And I thank God for that. Because this party wasn't about family. It was about truth. And now that we've had our share, I think dessert is served. I stepped down. No applause. No objections. Just silence. Vanessa stood and walked past Leo without a glance. Catherine sat down slowly, as if gravity had doubled. Her mascara streaked. Her lipstick cracked. Careers ended that night. So did a marriage. And a reputation or two. The week after the party, the world went quiet. Catherine moved into her sister's guest room. Her parents refused to speak to her. Meridian Advertising placed her on indefinite leave. Richard Vaughn didn't even wait for the HR investigation. Leo was out before Monday's team meeting. Vanessa told me that in a brief, bitter phone call, she cried, not for him, for herself, for the version of her life she thought she was living. We met one last time, at a park bench. Neutral ground. I don't know what I feel, she said. I thought I'd feel vindicated, or maybe powerful, but I just feel tired. I nodded. That's the hangover of truth. She turned to me. You were honest with me, right? About everything. I looked at her. I smiled, but I didn't answer. She left before the sun set. We haven't spoken since. As for Catherine, she tried to reach me. Letters, texts, a voicemail where she cried for nearly 5 minutes before saying a single word. Please. But I didn't need apologies. I needed peace. And peace doesn't come from words. It comes from silence. I filed for divorce a week after the party. My lawyer didn't even blink when I told him. The paperwork had been prepped long before the wine was poured. All that was left was my signature. She didn't contest. How could she? I kept the house. Not out of sentiment, but practicality. The kids needed stability. Something solid. Familiar. And ironically, I was the only thing left that fit the bill. Emma and Josh. I told them the truth in pieces. Not the ugly parts. Just the necessary ones. Mom and Dad are going to live in different places for a while. That's all they needed for now. They'd understand more when they were older. And when they asked, I'd tell them everything. Calmly. Fairly. Dear viewer, thank you for your invaluable viewing. We will be very grateful for your likes, subscriptions, comments, and sharing our story. See you soon.